Hello, and welcome everyone to today's webinar on live match funding with Crowdfunder. I'm Dawn Babe, co-CEO and founder of Crowdfunder, and I'm delighted to be sharing some exclusive insights on live match funding, a transformative approach to community funding with some of our experts from the Crowdfunder team. But before we begin, let me introduce you to Crowdfunder. We're the UK's leading crowdfunding platform. We're on a mission to tackle society's challenges by making ideas happen. We're a purpose-led organisation, and we believe that the best ideas don't just come in big blocks of concrete called the local authority or the government. We believe that sometimes the best ideas to solve some of society's challenges exist in the hearts and minds of people on the ground who know what it takes to make these things happen, but they just need a little bit of funding and support. So without further ado, let me show you how we do it.
We believe that through collaboration and doing good, we can support the ideas that might just change the world. From nature loss to social inequality, we face a host of complex challenges that cannot be solved alone. That's why we built Crowdfunder Connect, an innovative platform that matches impact-led organisations with thousands of community groups, charities and social enterprises. A better way to help them access vital funding and support. We'll create customisable programmes that enable you to support and engage with a diverse range of charities and causes that align with your values and purpose, making it super simple for your organisation to help. Your programme can exist as a fully branded online platform or on the Crowdfunder website. Here are some of the ways our technology can enable you to create real world impact. Live match funding helps causes raise even more. Funds can also be allocated in a lump sum or awarded when a project hits a certain milestone. Our suite of tools can be configured to engage a wide range of audiences, whether it's employees, customers, or the wider public. You can distribute your funds to your audience so they can engage with the causes that align with both yours and their values. These are some of the ways you can contribute, including match funds raised for good causes. As well as all the financial support that Crowdfunder Connect enables, you can create meaningful relationships through volunteering opportunities, comments, feedback, and sharing across social media. Through multiple partnerships, we've already helped thousands of charities, community groups, and social enterprises access the funding and support they need to make positive change. So join us, and together we can help tackle society's challenges. Crowdfunder Connect.
Great. So hopefully that's whetted your appetite a little bit. This is what we're going to take you through today in the next 3/4 of an hour. We're going to give you a quick introduction to Crowdfunder, talk about the power of live match funding, the benefits to organisations, and then we'll do a little bit of a Q&A, and we'll talk a little bit about future trends in corporate giving. So stay tuned. Hopefully the next 3/4 of an hour is going to be really interesting and educational. Okay, let's talk about Crowdfunder and the team a little bit. So here's our team for today. So there's me, co-CEO. I'm going to introduce you in a second to Graham Roy, who's our head of Connect. Jason Nuttall's going to join us. He's the head of the Crowdfunder Foundation. And also joining us will be Zoe, who's our community manager and has been working with thousands of projects over the years and knows an awful lot about how it works and how to make it work better. So Crowdfunder, here's a little bit about us. Here's us in numbers. So since we launched about 12 years ago, we have raised over £407 million for projects, businesses, individuals, charities and not-for-profits across the UK. Pretty big. We've distributed over £35 million now as match funding to projects, and we've seen over 86,000 projects funded, which is pretty huge. The other great thing is we've been able to sort of look at our impact, and we've seen over 17,000 volunteering opportunities created, 70,000 jobs created, and there's just so much more. So hopefully that gives you a little taste of what our functionality can do and how we can create a really massive impact for the right types of funds and projects. There's lots of you joining today from some very interesting organisations, both brands, corporates, but also charities and not-for-profits. And some of you out there we work with already. So thank you very much for joining us. It's great to have you. And maybe you could stick some questions and good points into the chat for us so that to sort of talk to the audience about what you've experienced. But here are some of the organisations we've worked with and currently working with. So you'll see people like British Airways, Aviva, M&S. We worked with Santander in the past, Co-op, and Sovereign. And then we've got some really, really big funding programs going on currently with Sport England. And I know some of you guys are on the call today. So great to see you. But we've also worked with people like Heritage Lottery Fund, Power to Change, and also a whole raft of local authorities, everybody from Cornwall Council through to Plymouth City Council, Portsmouth, Lambeth, Dorset, and so on. So as you can see, you're in great company. There's loads of people we work with, and we've seen lots of different approaches towards funding and making an impact. So talking of funders and making an impact, over the last few years, we've been sort of pioneering in this space, and we've been talking to all of these funders about how they run their programs, and they've sort of described some of the problems they face. Stretch resources, slow, cumbersome processes, programs that are expensive to administer, a real lack of visibility, both internally to their internal teams and externally, frustrations around they've done some really great work out in the community, but nobody knows anything about it. And sometimes they've sort of said to us, it's been really hard to demonstrate measurable results, which then means it's hard to justify the program or the campaign for the following year. Others have said to us, their chief execs have sort of questioned what's it actually done for our brands? Is it really worth it? So that's why we wanted to present to you today what we do at Crowdfunder. And we want to talk about what makes working with Crowdfunder such a game changer for organisations like yours. So there's really 4 key benefits about our Crowdfunder Connect product that our partners absolutely love. And I'd just like to talk you through them briefly. The first thing we do is it stretches your funds further. So you know that feeling when your budget just doesn't stretch far enough. We all want to support more worthy projects, right? Well, that's where Crowdfunder really delivers. When you work with us, your funding literally goes further. It's like having a funding multiplier. Every pound you invest attracts individual community support from the crowd. So instead of saying, oh, sorry, we've reached our funding limit, you're actually saying, look at all these amazing projects. We've helped to double their money. So it's really, really interesting. It makes that funding literally double and sometimes triple in some cases. The second benefit it brings is it really increases connectivity. So you know the situation, you're in your office, all the applications have come in and you're sifting through hundreds of them, thousands of them, and so many of them just don't align with what you're looking to support. It's really frustrating and quite a big time waste. With Crowdfunder, you can connect directly with causes that truly align with your values. Our platform helps you quickly discover and engage with the initiatives that actually resonate with your mission. So it's like having a matchmaking service for your corporate giving. You'll spend less time saying no to misaligned projects and more time celebrating the perfect matches that drive real change in areas you care about. Third, our product improves efficiency and will streamline your community support. Let's be honest, managing community engagement across multiple channels can be a bit of a nightmare. It pulls resources away from your core business and creates confusion. Crowdfunder brings everything together in one place. There's one platform, one brand, maximum efficiency. Your team will thank you. You'll free up valuable resources while ensuring projects get exactly what they need to succeed. Think about it, all your community support programs under one roof with consistent messaging and streamlined process. It's community engagement without the headache. Finally, impact you can measure, stories you can tell. And here's the one that gets people really excited: measurable impact. No more guessing games about whether your investments are making a difference. With Crowdfunder, you'll transform abstract support into concrete data. You'll get clear metrics on your social impact that can strengthen your tenders, reports, and everything in between. Imagine walking into your next board meeting with some great stories that show exactly how your community investments are performing. That's the kind of data-driven storytelling that makes everyone sit up and take notice. Stories that your PR team can really get behind. So there you have it. 4 powerful ways Crowdfunder can transform how you engage with and support your community. Now, we know that you out there, lots of you have different challenges with what you're currently doing. So we're going to drop a little poll into the chat and ask you to tell us what challenges you are currently facing with your existing programs. So if you sort of look in the chat, that should pop up a little poll. And if you could sort of go through and click the ones that seem most relevant to you, that would really help us so we can kind of work out how we can innovate further. So it's time for a live match funding deep dive. I'm going to bring in Graham here. Graham is our head of Connect, and he's been pioneering in this space for about 15 years, trying out new ways to make funding truly impactful and leveraging the power of the crowd. So Graham, over to you.
Thanks, Dawn, and hello everyone. Welcome along to our webinar today. So I'm going to take you through a real example. It's live, it's happening right now. In fact, you may have seen this project on the BBC News over the past few days. But let me give you a little bit of background first, because I'm going to talk about Aviva, the Aviva Community Fund. So we've been working with Aviva since 2019, delivering their community fund for them. And Aviva, they support projects that align with their sustainability ambitions. So two pillars of their sustainability ambitions are taking climate action and taking social action. So those are the sorts of organisations they want to be supporting and are supporting through the community fund. So let me take you back to the River Wandle. It's a chalk stream in the southeast of England. It's one of only 220 chalk streams in the world. So this is a really, vital habitat. It's rare. It's of significant ecological value. And the community there has been looking after the River Wandle for around about 25 years through an organisation that they've set up called the South East Rivers Trust, which now looks after a number of different catchments in that area. So what happened last week was there was an oil spill. 4,000 litres of oil spilt from a bus depot and found its way into the River Wandle. And the authorities sprung into action to contain the leak, the Environment Agency and so forth. But what the South East Rivers Trust did was they launched a crowdfunding campaign, because what they want to do is improve the monitoring that they're doing on the river, so that they're able to more quickly respond to pollution incidents, and also build up the natural defences, so planting reed beds, etc., so that the impact it can be managed. The ecosystem can handle it a bit better when these incidents do happen. So they set up their crowdfunding project. They applied to the Aviva Community Fund and they got approved. So that's great. They're going to get some money from Aviva. But what's really important here, and what's happening is actually Aviva, they are giving them money, they're helping them through that way, but they're also giving them, as you can see in this sort of image here, a really compelling message to go out to their audiences. So they're helping them to raise funds. They're saying, donate today because your donation will be doubled. A compelling message that the project owner can use to engage their audience. Now, this is carried through the project page and into the checkout. And this is the other interesting thing that's happening. When I'm making my donation to the River Wandle, I'm seeing that Aviva are matching that. So here's a project that I care about, and I'm going to put my hand in my pocket and support it. So are Aviva. Aviva care about this too. So there's some really nice alignment between the supporters backing this project and the brand that is supporting this project, which you don't often see when making donations to good causes. The third point, which is vital for Aviva, is obviously the South East River Trust have been through the application process, they've been through the due diligence checks and what have you. But the really interesting thing here is that the community are telling Aviva they want it to happen. Over 400 people have put their hands in their pockets and donated to this project. They really care about it. So Aviva have an extra level, I suppose, of understanding that this is something the community wants. This is the right thing to be supporting. And the fourth point here, which Dawn alluded to earlier, is Aviva aren't funding the whole of this project. They're match funding it. They're funding part of it, which means that they can fund other projects as well. They have funding that can be spread to other important causes. So lots of the way that match funding is really helping both the project but also the partner in how they're distributing their funds. Moving on, if we talk about what are you getting in the back end? How does this all work? So we've got an application management process, we've got the fund distribution process and all that sort of thing working on the platform. It's easy to use, quick to set up, and it's got all the functionality and what have you that you would expect within there. During the onboarding process, when we're working with you, we'll be looking at the funding criteria. This is a really important part of the puzzle because we have hundreds of projects adding to Crowdfunder every day, and as Dawn showed you in the numbers earlier on, it's pretty staggering. But what we're doing with the funding criteria is we're looking at those projects and we're matching them against your criteria, and we're only showing application forms to those projects that are likely to be eligible for your criteria. So the matching is all happening in the background. So this is great. This means that you're getting more relevant applications to your fund and less not relevant applications. That's taking place. The other really interesting thing here is that every project that comes on the platform can get funding. You're not going to be able to support every project, every application that comes through. And so in a normal process, there'll be a decline. Sorry, you can't get funding. We'll see you later. What's really interesting here is that actually there is an alternative route for the organisation to get funding. They can still run their crowdfunding project. They can still get funding from the crowd, and they may be able to apply for funding from other partners as well. So it's a much softer no. You're not just saying no and shutting the door. You're giving them another route that they can still access the funding that they need to make their idea happen. And the final point here is around, what is the final point? The final point here is around, let me just check my notes.
Graham, can I ask you a
Improves
question?
campaigns. Yeah.
Graham, can I ask you a question while you think about your final point? One of the things that funders sort of concerns them and worries them a little bit is that they'll lose control, because at the moment, I guess if you're doing it through a traditional grant process, or you've got full control about who gets the funding, whereas in an automated system, I guess people are a bit like, oh God, what if I don't want to fund the wrong project? What if somebody applies and it goes wrong? How does it work with regard to control?
Yeah, so partners have complete control. There's an application process. We work with you to create the application form. That's asking the questions that you need to know the answers to in order to make a decision as to whether we're going to fund this project or not. And indeed, with some of our partners, we take on that responsibility for them. So we've got a team of moderators who can go in and look at that. But yeah, you've got absolute control over who you're going to fund. And the rules and the criteria of the funds are set up in a way that, again, you're controlling how much you're giving. You can set a maximum. You can set conditions like, we need to see public engagement, like we saw on the River Wandle. We want to see 50 people supporting this before we release funds, etc., etc. So our product is, it's highly configurable in that sense, in making sure that you get what you need in order to run your program effectively.
Brilliant. Okay, should we take a look at Sport England?
That would be great. So Sports England, I think they're on the call today. So hello, Neil. Nice to have you with us. I'll pick out a few metrics on here, which are really, really interesting. So for sport, we've raised nearly £19 million for our programs with Sport England, and Sport England put in 6 million. So you can see the amplification here is massive in terms of the amount of money that these organisations are receiving. There's some other great stats here around engagement, funding from other partners, and that sort of thing. But crowdfunding is much more than money. Through the process of crowdfunding, you're going out, you're speaking to your audience, you're engaging supporters, and that has loads of positive benefits. So, for example, here, of the projects surveyed, 36% saw an increase in the number of volunteers coming to take part. 61% had improved their skills around social media. So they're developing skills, making them more sustainable for the future. And over half of the projects made collaborations with new partners and other organisations that will help them grow and develop as an organisation, making them more sustainable.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it's really interesting. If you talk to a project owner, they sort of will often say, yeah, I thought I came to crowdfunding because of the money, but after I'd done it, it was about so much more than the money. I got so much more out of it than just money. And I think that's one of the winning things really from a project's point of view. So I think I'm going to bring in the rest of our expert panel now onto the call. So welcome to Zoe, our community manager. And I'm also going to bring in Jason, who heads up our Crowdfunder Foundation. And obviously, we'll keep Graham here. We're going to discuss some key questions. But if you have got any questions from what you've just heard, if you pop it into the chat, we're going to try and field some questions live at the end. So if you've got any kind of questions, burning thoughts or comments, questions, observations, stick them in the chat and we'll try and answer them towards the end of this section. So Zoe, are you there?
Hello, I am. Thanks.
You are there. Right, so Zoe, hello. You've seen over the years, you've seen crowdfunders receiving match funding right across the UK. Could you share an example? I gather you have a map created that you prepared earlier in Blue Peter style. So talk us through that.
As if by magic, yes, this wonderful map. I'd love to take credit for it. It wasn't actually me. It was our wonderful team. But it's just to really highlight all of the different projects across the whole of the UK that have been supported by our match funding partners. There's hundreds upon hundreds of them. I wanted to focus on Coexist Community Kitchen, which are a CIC based in Easton in Bristol, which is my hometown. So already I have an affinity with this project. They've actually crowdfunded with us every year since 2021. I will put a link into the resource tab so everyone on the call can take a look at their projects. One thing that's brilliant about Coexist is their ability to engage with their community. They offer free cookery classes and free meals to marginalised groups in their local community. Their programmes are helping individuals that are facing addiction, maybe mental health challenges and displacement, including refugees. And with their crowdfunding campaigns, they've been able to kind of glean all of those wonderful benefits that Graham mentioned. So it's not just about the money that they've raised, it's about those wonderful skills that they've developed. And it's kept them coming back to our platform year on year because this model of fundraising clearly works really well for this community organisation. Notably, in 2023, they came to our platform. They had a new fundraising manager. They'd successfully crowdfunded before and accessed match funding, which is brilliant. However, this year, in 2023, I should say, they hadn't applied for any match funding as yet. And they were actually invited to apply for the Access Cost of Living Resilience Fund, along with a match fund from Sovereign. So that's something that our system can do. It can match projects with funds that it could be a really good fit for. And also our funding partners can invite those projects to apply. If they think there's a project on the platform, that really aligns with their values and their criteria, they can actually invite them to come along and put in an application. And that was the case with Coexist. They actually received funding from both of those partners and went on to massively exceed their £50,000 target, raising over £60,000. And as you can imagine, for a small not-for-profit organisation, that's huge. Not only the amount of money that they raised, but the fact that they did it in such a short amount of time, it meant that they could fast track their project delivery. And not only that, they've got a huge amount of validation, and it's really cemented their kind of sense of purpose with what they're doing. They know that they're doing something really valuable, but by going through the process of launching a crowdfunding campaign and having it backed by multiple funding partners, just really highlights and showcases to their community as well as themselves that what they're doing is really important. So much so that the wonderful Becky, who actually kind of spearheaded the 2023 and now the 2024 campaign as well, was in tears, bless her, when we actually went out. Our content team went to Coexist, did some filming with the team there. And she was so incredibly moved by the support, not only from her community, but from our funding partners as well, that it actually brought her to tears. And that can be seen in our story section on the website as well. So just really to reiterate what Graham's been saying about those benefits and that impact that can happen for projects, every pound that's being donated by a community member, a supporter, is then having such a big amplification with those match funds that it's really helping to drive significant positive change in communities. And it's so, so vital for all of those grassroots organisations out there.
Thanks, Zoe. Yeah, and I think one of the key things is our partners become a member of the crowd, and the project can leverage in different match funding from different sources through our platform. So Aviva can be alongside BA, can be alongside Salford Council if the project's right. And so it's really, really powerful. And so a project can double, triple, quadruple their money even through these match funding partners. And it just creates some great stories and really showcases and lifts up some really important projects that are doing good stuff out there. So yeah, it's really exciting. Thank you. That was really, really helpful. So Jason, I'd like to bring you in. So Jason, you're the head of the Crowdfunder Foundation, and also you've got a background in charities over the years. How do you see it? So how do you see crowdfunders match funding amplification and sort of positively improve outcomes? What are your thoughts on it?
Hi, Dawn. Yeah, thanks. I mean, for me, the match funding we offer is a truly catalytic way to distribute funds. My background's in grant making, and I really see the benefits which the match crowdfunding process brings over more traditional grant making methods. It's the process that supports organisations. They tell the world about the great work they do, why it's important, the impact the work has, and then ask people to help them to achieve that impact. And what we've seen, and as Zoe's covered, that brings a lot more benefits. We know that organisations will grow their number of supporters, they'll learn skills through the process, they'll increase their number of volunteers. And often after they've crowdfunded, the funding itself becomes almost secondary to the benefits that they've received. There's some really exciting stuff that happens. So it's for me, it's important that the process itself, embedded within it, is what brings the great outcomes. And for funders, the benefit of amplification is quite obvious to see in terms of the funds are being matched at least 1-to-1, but we often see much higher rates of match being achieved, as we saw with the Sport England example, over £2 for every pound of their funding. There's a lot of flexibility within the process as well. So we've worked with Sport England, who have used different match funding ratios, particularly to focus on weighting funding to areas of deprivation, but also towards projects which are really hitting their top priorities, the kind of the groups that they want to support, the activity they want to support as well. Um, with our Access funded cost of living resilience fund, I think we've got Josh from Access on the call as well. Hi, Josh. We actually used a model where in the more deprived areas, the fund matched £3 for every pound that the projects raise. So really, for them, amazing. That's an amazing offer to be able to go out to your community, say every pound that you give will get three from a match funder. So you would have thought with that fund, the funders' money would be most prevalent, but actually by the end of the campaign, and I think Zoe's got a report she's going to share as part of the resources, we saw that their £500,000 of funding was turned into £1 million of funding going into those really impactful projects in deprived communities. That match funding coming not just from the crowd, from people, but also from other other partners on the crowdfunder platform. So we find there's a lot of flexibility in the approach, which our partners really value as well.
Brilliant. Thanks, Jason. That was really interesting. I didn't know about Access. That's amazing. Okay, so Graham, there's probably a few corporates out there who are sort of looking at this perhaps slightly differently, and they're thinking about their brand impact, they're thinking about PR, they're thinking about stories, content. So how do you see it working for corporates?
Well, it's an absolute story machine, isn't it? These good causes, raising funds for the things they care about, people taking action. It really is it's a bit of a dream world, really. How our partners are doing that, how they measuring these sorts of things. So they've got their brand monitoring reports. They're seeing their community funds appearing within the monitoring reports. They're doing surveys to customers and focus groups and that sort of thing. So they're seeing how the general public as well as customers and internally people are engaging with the programs as well. I think there's a few really interesting bits. I suppose the consumer bit is quite obvious, isn't it? We're looking at the River Wandle, there's 400 people donating there. They're all interacting with the brand when they're making their donation. They're seeing the brand supporting alongside. But some of the other stuff that's going on, we've built reports recently for people who, they're doing tenders, they're doing pitches and what have you, and they're saying, what I need to know is how many volunteering hours have we done in Bristol? What are the projects we've been supporting? How are we engaging the community? What is the total that those organisations have raised? So I love those sorts of questions and how our reporting's developing to be able to answer those quickly and easily, and it's supporting businesses with their pitches and their brands. You've got to, as an organisation now, talk about the good stuff you're doing in the community as well. It's a requirement, really, and that's coming. That's helping organisations with their sales, I suppose, and generating new business.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it is I think story disco ball is what I call it. It's an absolute story machine, and it's great. It can be really emotional, but also kind of high delivering as well. Zoe, have you got any questions that we can sort of answer? Have you seen any questions in the chat?
Absolutely. So we've had an anonymous question come through. Our local authority has a fund, but we will find most of the donations to a project come from us and not from the public. Would live match funding address this?
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in on that one, Zoe. Yeah, absolutely. Some of our local authority partners do use our live match funding. I think Salford have really sort of pioneered with that, and they're doing a one-to-one match, so every donation is being doubled. So more often than not, they are not the big, they're not putting in all the money. At least half the money is coming from the crowd. Occasionally it's coming from other funders as well. We get some really lovely alignment between our local authorities and some of our corporate partners, particularly those that have got offices in and around Manchester there. But also from organisations like Sport England. So I suppose our perfect project really gets a bit of money from the crowd, from the general public. It's getting a bit of money from the corporate, getting a bit of money from the local authorities and the government sector. So yeah, getting that funding mix, and I suppose that de-risks things. It encourages collaboration, because I think right at the top we were talking about the requirement for collaboration to solve some of these problems. We're not going to do it. One business isn't going to do it on its own. The government isn't going to do it on its own. We've all got to work together to make these things happen.
A question for Jason. Does every project get match funding on Crowdfunder? How does it work?
Well, we've got thousands of projects on Crowdfunder at any one time. So if you have a look at them, you'll see, no, not every project is getting match funding. Some will be just raising funds. It might be an individual raising funds for a personal cause. They could be fundraising towards a charity. But to get match funding, each project owner, the person running the campaign, would need to apply to each individual fund. So they choose the funds, and in fact the system matches them to those funds as well. So when anyone comes onto Crowdfunder, you start setting up your crowdfunding campaign, put in your postcode, a bit about your organisation, what it is you're looking to raise money for and do. A little pop-up will appear that says we may have match funding available. If it's a project based in Cornwall, they might see the Cornwall Council funds. If it's a sports club, they would see the Sport England fund. So they can choose then whether they want to apply for that match funding or not. But yeah, there's loads of organisations on the platform. They might apply for match funding and they're not quite a fit for the funder, but they can still go on and raise money. Again, that's something I love about crowdfunding, different to a grant making process, where if you apply for a grant, once you click submit or send on that email, it's out of your hands. And that's a lot of work that you could have put in and you get no return from it. What we see with crowdfunding is that effort in will often equal cash out at the end. And if you can apply for match funding and get support from a match funder along the way, then that has a really amazing impact as well.
Graham, something that we haven't touched on, but obviously crowdfunding is different from filling in a grant form. It's a completely different process. And I suppose some project owners might be a bit scared of doing it. They might not know how to crowdfund. They might be, worried about, what if they fail and so on. So what sort of support do project owners get? What kinds of things do we do to help them?
Yeah, absolutely. Also, there is another type of organisation, I suppose, that are a bit scared of filling in grant application forms and perhaps more in touch with creating videos on social media and all that sort of thing. I don't know, certainly Sport England, we've opened up new audiences for those guys to come and support. So just flipping that a little bit on its head. But coming back to your question, we do provide support. When you go through the process, you get automated emails that are tailored and customized depending on the type of organization you are, how you're doing, where you are in the process, etc., etc. We also have lots of resources. So we run regular webinars like this for project owners to come along. We run drop-in sessions, which Zoe often hosts, where project owners are coming in and they're asking their questions and what have you. And of course, we have the support team and all the information on the website. So no matter how you sort of consume information, everyone does it differently. Some people read instructions. I definitely don't. I dive in and get stuck in. But we've got different methods for the different ways that people learn, so that they're able to run a successful crowdfund campaign, but also they learn from each other. So that's really, really sort of important and exciting.
Yeah, and I guess for some funds, we actually run whole coaching programs, don't we? We actually run a bespoke set of learning experiences for people. So yeah, it depends what you want as a sort of funder. Jason, another question for you. I expect some people on the call are thinking, well, I don't have £2 or £3 million like Sport England. I only have, my, I don't know, 30 grand or 10 grand or whatever it is that I give out every year. How do we sort of manage small to big? Is it possible to have a smaller fund on Crowdfunder?
Yeah, it's absolutely possible to have a smaller fund. Some of our funds do range in size. Obviously, we're working with some local organisations right up to big nationals, so they all have funds of different sizes. Obviously, then the criteria for the funder, you can restrict the kind of organisations you're looking to support. And I noticed there was someone asking about, can you contact the organisations? Well, I think Graham mentioned earlier about how, as a funder, you are in control. So as a funder, you can opt to receive applications from anybody through the Crowdfunder platform. You could also just choose to find the projects you want to support, bring them onto the platform and match fund those projects that you're already supporting as well. So if you've got cohorts of projects you regularly support and you want to match fund them, then we could work with that cohort as well. So it's a very flexible approach which works for big and small.
Brilliant. Okay, Graham, one for you that's come in. So the top line question is, how much dedicated resource do you need to manage a fund? And I guess there's two parts to that question. One is, do you need a degree in computing to be able to operate your fund? And the second is, do you need a full-time employee on it all the time to sort of run your fund program? How does it work with Crowdfunder?
So the simple answer is, it's how you want it to work. We've got various options that we can provide. For example, with some organizations, we do all the moderation, we look after the funds, they set up the criteria and they essentially leave us to it, and we do it all for them. So we're essentially almost like a little team working for them. Other organizations, they will review all the applications and take all that on in-house. I suppose, how much resource does it take? Well, it depends how big your fund is, how many applications you're looking to receive, whether you're always on or just running for a period of time. All the flexibility is available through the system, so that we can we can run the program so that it works for you and the organizations that you want to support. I think that's the key thing, is that obviously we want to help you, but we also want to help the organizations. So we'll work with you to work out how is the best way to support your communities, what is the best way that works for you.
Okay, brilliant. Now, big question. Some people on the call a bit worried about price. How much does it cost? How do we make our money? So I think I'm going to start off by talking about how we make our money, and then maybe I could hand over to you, Graham and Jason, just talk about the different ways and costing structures. So first of all, I can't see who's asked the question, Neil. We are not a charity. We're a more than profit organisation, but the way that we generally make our money is when people pledge on a project, we ask for a tip or a donation, and that's optional. They can set the slider to 0, or they can pay us lots of money if they want to. Most people pay us a little tip, and that's our sort of key revenue stream. So that's how we make our money. But we also make some money through partnerships and fund distribution. So Graham, do you want to just talk a little bit about the models that we sort of work with partners on?
Yeah, generally we have a sort of subscription model with our partners. So there'll be a monthly fee to administer the funds and to license the software. And then there'll be a fund distribution fee. So the cost for distributing the money that we're going out. We like that model because it puts some skin in the game from our side. We want to make sure we're getting the funds out to the projects that you want to support. So when we're being successful at that, when we're doing a good job at that, then obviously we're being paid to do that. So that's the sort of model, is a subscription license fee, if you like, to use the software, and then that fund distribution fee. Obviously we sort of got a menu of options. You know, we can do bespoke webinars, we can do workshops, we can do all those other bells and whistles, I suppose, but that's the core of it.
Yeah, so scale it up, scale it down. And Jason, the foundation allows us even more flexibility for charities or not-for-profits. Do you want to just comment a little bit on the way the foundation can work with, especially perhaps smaller funds or smaller charities?
Yeah, so through the foundation, which has a charitable structure, it gives the scope to work with a broader range of organisations. Many trusts or foundations, for instance, can only pass money to a registered charity. So that provides a route where through the foundation we can work with those organisations. It also provides a model whereby we can offer for high net worths or philanthropists to create a fund. They can pay their money into the foundation, create their match fund around their priorities. There are the tax benefits of that as well. So, and anybody making a large donation into the foundation can claim the gift aid on that as well. And in terms of costs through the foundation, we can be a bit more flexible in terms of models and look at how we can work with smaller funds. Again, there'll still be a fee, much like a community foundation might charge you to set up a grant fund. We'll charge a fee based on the amount of funds distributed.
Yeah, good. Thank you. Okay, so I think we'll wind it up there. There's some good questions, and I think some of the main ones were covered. So thank you very much for joining us today. If you're interested in learning more, yes, first of all, we're going to be sending out the recording of this. So if you've signed up and registered, we're going to be looking at that. You can also book a one-to-one consultation using the link in the chat. You can register for our March webinar, which is going to be around staff incentives, and you can download today's resources from the chat. So really big thank you to everyone who's joined us today. Graham, you'll also receive Graham's email, and thank you to Zoe and Jason for all the valuable insights you provided. We're going to sign off on a video that hopefully brings to life some of what some of the impact we deliver. So Scott, who's in the background somewhere, can I ask you to sign us out on Flamingo Chicks? This is one of our projects who received some funding from British Airways.
To just give you a little bit of extra news, because we would love to give you an extra £10,000 to put into the pot.
Oh my goodness. So I'm Katie. I founded Flamingo Chicks 8 years ago. My daughter Poppy has cerebral palsy and wanted to dance. We were really frustrated by the lack of inclusive opportunities out there. So I started Flamingo Chicks, and 8 years later we have 20,000 children, and it's scaled across the UK, and we are inclusive. So we work with all children. We have some children that have no disabilities at all, but we also have lots of children with conditions like cerebral palsy, Down syndrome, cancer, and it's just a beautiful explosion of joy is the way I like to describe it.
Honestly, this is where our passion is about, working through the fund and making sure that projects that we can support get the right support. So thank you. So we are absolutely delighted to be partnered with you, and we wanted to just give you a little bit of extra news, because we would love to give you an extra £10,000 to put into the pot.
Oh my goodness.
Hopefully that can do a little bit more work for you.
Oh my goodness, that's absolutely incredible. Thank you so much. That is just wonderful. I cannot wait to quickly get off and tell my team. I will explode with excitement.
So if you're still watching, thank you, everyone. We're going to do another webinar next month, and it's going to be on employee giving. So tune in and see you soon.